You're listening to the Common Descent Podcast.
Hello, Will.
Hello, David.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Common Descent, a podcast about paleontology, evolution, the history of life on Earth. This is episode 245, and our topic today is Cycads. As is tradition, this episode number ends in a 5, which means we're talking about plants. Cycads are a very famous group of plants associated with ancient times. You often see them, illustrated alongside dinosaurs and stuff. Why is that? What is special about cycads? Did they actually exist alongside dinosaurs? Are they a truly ancient group of plant life? I have no idea. I know Will doesn't know.
Not even a little bit.
And that is why, after we get through the intro and the news, we will be joined this episode, as always, by our favorite paleobotanist, Dr. Ali Baumgartner, who will join us to answer all of these questions for us. And also, you get to listen.
Which is exciting, because, cycads are famous, but I know nothing actually about them.
Same. So this is going to be a lot of fun. We will be able to dive into this familiar but mysterious group of plants. We'll be able to go through their modern diversity as well as their evolutionary history and figure out what it is about them that makes them so ancient coded in so much of our art. This topic, as usual, was also requested. Our listeners have the opportunity to suggest topics they'd like to hear us talk about here on the podcast. You can submit your requests through the topic request form on our website. This episode topic was requested by Jorge, JD, Kayleen, and Garrick.
Thank you for the request, because now I get to learn about these plants.
We're going to learn a whole bunch. It's going to be great. And Allie will be thrilled to blow our minds. Before we get into that, some quick announcements first and foremost. This podcast is supported almost entirely by Patreon. Our supporters on Patreon allow us to do all of the cool things that we do with the little extra supplemental income from stuff like ads and things like that. We couldn't do the podcast without our patrons, and in exchange, we offer them bonus content. There's bonus news. We do live streams every month. There's merch stuff. There's all sorts of cool stuff that patrons can get, including, at certain levels, their names shouted out here on the podcast when they join. This episode, we welcome our newest patrons, A North Star, Karis the Emu Raff, and Colby Jack the Cheese Boy.
Welcome, everyone.
It's a good list.
Yeah.
It's a good lineup of patrons this episode. Welcome and thank you, dear listener. If you would like to consider supporting our science communication efforts financially, please consider joining us on the Patreon. You can find a link in the episode description. And right now is an excellent time to consider joining the Patreon, because this episode is the first episode to be coming out June of 2026, which means it is Croc Month.
Croc Month!
Here at Common Descent, we celebrate Croc Month in June and Snake Month in July to pay homage to these the best animals around.
Yes.
For Croc Month, we are going to have some croc-themed episode discussions. We're going to have a bonus episode where we'll talk about some croc research later in the month. The Croc Chat channel is officially open on our Discord. We will also be doing a Croc Month live stream on June 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on YouTube. Anyone will be able to join. We'll talk about what's new with crocs. We'll just geek out about crocs for the whole live stream.
Yeah.
And over on our Patreon, the Crocs and Snakes tier is back just for the months of June and July. Patrons who support us at this tier will get their very own Croc Month stickers and also Snake Month stickers next month. And support we receive at this tier during these months will contribute to charitable donations we will be making toward wildlife conservation toward the end of the summer. This year, we will be donating to our two mainstays, the Crocodile Research Coalition, and Save the Snakes, both of which are organizations dedicated specifically to our chosen favored groups of reptiles. And our third this year is the Natural Resources Defense Council, which is an organization that provides legal and legislative support to all sorts of environmental issues, helping with the broader goal of safeguarding our wildlife and our surrounding environments and the habitats that crocs and snakes need to survive.
Yeah.
As always, we are thrilled to be able to use the podcast as a platform, not only for spreading awareness about these organizations, but to send some money their way.
It's always nice.
This year especially, we're excited to support an organization like the NRDC, which is specifically focused on legal issues surrounding the environment, which feels very fitting in the current political landscape, particularly here in the US, where those kinds of issues have become really prominent problems and really prominent topics in the realm of wildlife and environmental conservation.
Yeah, so often with many of these issues, the bottom line is that without policy change and upholding of those laws, not a lot of measurable change can actually be done. So it's
Yes.
really huge.
And there's been a lot of policy going on recently that has been bad environmental policy. So being
Yes.
able to support some of that change is grand. Also, June, in addition to being Croc Month, is Pride Month. So
Yeah, it
happy
is.
Pride Month, everybody. Speaking of things that have been the center of some bad policy recently,
Mm-hmm.
we hope that all of our listeners are doing okay and that you have June that is full of love and support and pride. We are always so thrilled to see online and in person that our listener community is full of such awesome, supportive, diverse, lovely human beings. And we're sending you a lot of love. Happy Pride Month to all of our friends out there.
Yes, absolutely. This also reminded me, for anyone who's not aware of it, like on our Discord, you can add a flag for whatever you
Yeah.
identify and you are to your name if you want.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different flag options.
So great month to do that if you haven't checked those out.
Absolutely. This month, celebrate Crocs, be gay, do crimes.
All three, please.
Also going on, Leave It to Us is out and about and on a roll. Our spin-off podcast, our sister podcast, all about plants, hosted by Nora and Allie, who we will be hearing a whole bunch from later this episode. By the time this episode comes out, I believe the first 3 episodes of season 2 of Leave It to Us will be out. So far this season, they've talked about berries and forests and weeds, all sorts of cool stuff.
Yeah, it's exciting for it to be back.
They are also running a plant-themed book club this year. The first meeting of that book club happened on our Discord, on the Common Descent Discord at the end of May, wherever we all gathered up and discussed the book Braiding Sweetgrass. This month, for June, the book that the patrons have selected is Annihilation, which will be discussed in a Reading Between the Pines meetup later in June. So check out the Discord, go listen to Leave It to Us to keep up to date with all the fun plant stuff. Also, Bricks with Basque is happening.
Woo! Yeah, it is.
Will is building Legos and things. I bet there's going to be some croc and snaky stuff happening over in Legoland for this summer.
We can only hope.
And finally, so we are recording this on June 1st, where we are sitting here and it is June 1st. It is Dinosaur Day. So a happy Dinosaur Day to everybody out there. And that means that we are officially appearing on another podcast. Our friend Ryan hosts a podcast called The Magic of Calvin and Hobbes. Episode 22 is all about dinosaurs and how dinosaurs are portrayed in the comic strip Calvin and Hobbes. That episode was tons of fun because not only did Will and I get to go over there and chat dinosaurs with Ryan and Indy, but we were also joined by Sabrina and Garrett from I Know Dino, who are 2 of our favorite people. So it was just a real party. It was a real hour-long dinosaur party. and it's tons of fun.
It was so much fun. It was delightful. And just if you're a fan of dinos or Calvin and Hobbes or just fun science discussion, it was a blast. It's worth it.
So that podcast again is The Magic of Calvin and Hobbes. Go check it out. And with that, the first episode of June is always real packed with announcements. There's a lot of cool stuff that happens as we get into the summer. But you know what else is cool stuff that's happening? Science and research and study and things. So it's time for the news. Every episode, before we get into our main topic, we like to collect a handful of recent publications within the fields of paleontology, evolutionary science, and so on, just to keep us all up to date on what kind of research has been going on recently. Will, you have the floor for our first bit of news.
First news of Croc Month is about a bipedal croc.
That tracks. That makes sense.
Yep. It has to be. It's required. This is research about a new species of bipedal, not croc, but close cousin, and is from a unique group and gives us some more insights into this weird group of croc-like creatures. This is research by Alan Turner et al. In the Journal of Vertebrate Paleontology, and the article is by Enrico de Lazaro in Sci News. So, the group we're looking at are called Shuvosaurids. These are archosaurs, specifically pseudosuchians, and even more specifically, papasaurids. This is a group from the Triassic. They are croc-like. Pseudosuchians are a group very closely related to the crocodilomorph lineage that leads to our modern crocs, but pseudo means not quite, and suchian means croc. So,
yes,
not quite crocs.
This is the very extended croc family.
Yes, exactly. They are known from North America and Argentina, and they are very weird shape for a croc-like creature. They are bipedal, slim-bodied, so very gracile, very nimble-looking. They've lost their teeth, so they are indentulous. They have likely some kind of beak-like structure. If not, I don't know whether there's evidence of them having the keratin covering, but they have a toothless mouth, very much like some beaked dinosaurs. They say the best image to think of is if you can picture like an ornithomimus kind of dinosaur, those ostrich-like dinosaurs, kind of like that, but croc-related and a little bit less ridiculous necks. There are only 3 species known today: Suvosaurus from Texas, Ephegia from northern New Mexico, and Silosuchus from western Argentina. Their bodies are so weird that they are immediately recognizable from other archosaurs and other pseudosuchians. So even like a single bone can be identified to this group very easily. But between the species, they are very similar, especially the 2 North American species. Like, they're actually quite hard to tell apart in some regards because of how similar they are. This study is describing a new species from New Mexico that falls between the ages of Shuvosaurus and Ephegia and fills in a bit of the fossil record gap here in North America, and also gives us some insights about how similar all of the North American known Shuvosaurids are. This is the Brugasuchus expectatus. It dates to about 212 million years old and was described from a partial skeleton. There's also some other Shuvosaurid material from another fossil site that they think likely pertains to this taxon, so there might be some other material, but this initial specimen is a partial skeleton, and like I said, fills a gap between the 2 other North American species and differs only very slightly from them.
That makes sense.
It is also extremely similar to them, which reinforces the pattern that at least North American Shuvosaurids were very similar and evidently maintained that similarity for at least 10 million years in North America as you go across the 3 species.
Cool. So this is a group that got weird and then pretty much stayed that same way for a while.
Yeah, and didn't diversify a lot, it seems, into like weird niches or anything. It seems like they kind of stayed the shape that they are pretty consistently. Now, we are missing a lot of fossils because their fossil record is pretty sparse. So there's probably other species out there that may break this trend. But so far, all the known species, and especially the North American species, are very conservative in their body plan. This also reinforces the idea that they were probably endemic to Western North America, that this group really was only found here, and probably that also caused some of their sameness across their ages, that they weren't spread out, they weren't living in a bunch of different places, they were living in a similar area throughout that time. Based off these similarities and phylogenetic comparisons that they did, it supports that this group displayed a lower rate of adaptation and evolution, that they were not changing as much, which could also mean that we're finding fewer species because there were fewer species. They weren't speciating, and were kind of a just very even-keeled group during their history.
I'm always very excited to see research on new Triassic reptiles because the Triassic is so full of such a strange diversity. In the same way that we talk about the Jurassic and the Cretaceous as having all of this wild diversity of dinosaurs and other reptiles, the Triassic was kind of doing that before the age of dinosaurs really set in. The Triassic was kind of like the prototype, the beta test of the Mesozoic era. And you got all of these really cool groups of animals that just didn't continue from there.
Well, and that's why this one stands out to me, because for all intents and purposes, these are very dinosaur shaped, but they didn't explode, it seems. And it makes me wonder, is there some key difference between the way dinosaurs did this kind of animal and Pseudotsuchians did this kind of animal that maybe held the Pseudotsuchians back where dinosaurs were able to flourish?
Yeah. Well, and it might be a lot of the dinosaurs, the early dinosaurs in the Triassic, remained relatively generalized.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be that crocs like this got too specialized.
Yep.
And then when the environment changed, when the Triassic extinction happened, they couldn't adapt. But enough dinosaurs were still sort of general shaped and had broad diets and whatnot that they were able to continue.
And that is what we see in like the crocodilian fossil record, that generalists are the ones that persist through each extinction and then rediversify very often.
Yeah, very cool. Well, my first bit of news is also about Mesozoic fossils from North America, but instead of reptiles, it's mammals.
Ooh.
Particularly, this is a handful of new mammal species from the high Arctic of the late Cretaceous period.
Cool.
This is research published in the journal PNAS by Sarah Shelley et al., and we'll link in the blog post to a press release on phys.org from the University of Colorado at Boulder. These new mammal fossils come from the Prince Creek Formation in Alaska. This is a deposit that we've talked about before. It is famously a very, very high latitude location from the Cretaceous period. Today, northern Alaska is already high latitude, but it is estimated that at the time of the Prince Creek Formation, around 73 million years ago, this area was between 80 and 85 degrees north latitude.
Woof.
Which is what, as a reminder, it only goes up to 90.
Yep.
This is Arctic. You're almost like, you can see Santa from you could wave to Santa from this formation.
Like, this has Alaska almost positioned like Antarctica is on the south, where like we almost had just a northern landmass, and that's a North Pole landmass. That's very cool.
The Prince Creek Formation is known for lots of polar dinosaur fossils, but here these researchers are describing a handful of new mammals. All three of these new species are described based on teeth, which tends to be how you do it with mammals, and all three of them are multituberculates.
Makes sense.
Multituberculates are a group of rodent-like mammals. They're not actually rodents. They're a completely different group, but they were extremely diverse and successful from the Jurassic period all the way to the Eocene. So they survived through the age of dinosaurs into the age of mammals. Here, there are 3 new species which are among the most northern dwelling Mesozoic mammals ever known.
Cool.
The first of the species is Camerodon borealis, which is a member of a group called Cimolomyidae. It is the northernmost known species in this group. Its name means northern curved tooth. The second species, and now I'm going to start pronouncing things wrong because these names are building off of, it sounds like Alaskan indigenous languages, which is extremely cool and also means I'm probably pronouncing them wrong. The second species is Conyxic Cosmodon polaris, which is a member of a group called Microcosmodontidae. This is the oldest known species in this group, which is interesting because it suggests that this group of mammals might have started in the Arctic and then spread elsewhere, which is very cool to know. Its name means polar frost ornamented tooth, which is the second coolest name of these new multituberculates. And the third species is Kayakgruk peregrinus, a member of yet another group of multituberculates, the Jajacta thyroidea. This is a Mongolian group of multituberculates. So finding one in Alaska, in the Alaskan polar Arctic region, is, according to the paper, the earliest known direct evidence of multituberculates dispersing across the polar region between Asia and North America. That this represents a branch of this group that traveled intercontinentally from where the group seems to have originated.
Wow.
And its name means the little wandering hero, specifically referencing the hero Kayak of Alaskan Inuit culture. This is a legendary hero of the local culture that this little mammal is named for, in part because it is it is on this journey of dispersal between the continents.
That's awesome.
That's so cool. More fossil animals should be named after legendary heroes of various cultural mythologies. That's fantastic.
Yes. Neat.
The teeth also suggest different diets in all 3 of these mammals. Camerodon seems to have been an herbivore eating plants, Kayakgruk an omnivore, and then Conyxic Cosmodon, according to the paper, also looks like an omnivore, but maybe more plant heavy.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is interesting because it suggests that these 3 species were all living slightly different lifestyles, which is probably what allowed them to survive alongside each other in these high Arctic environments. This is niche partition.
Yeah.
Altogether, this is the kind of study that I really, really like. A handful of teeth has told us about the ecosystem structure in the Cretaceous High Arctic, about patterns of dispersal between the continents, and about patterns of diversification of mammals in the late Cretaceous. As they put it in the paper, the Arctic was both a corridor of dispersal and a cradle of diversification for mammals at this time.
Yeah. Well, and that's why it's so important to remember that each fossil could be critical. You know, there's definitely cases where, like, if you're in the same fossil site and you are finding your 50th specimen of a species that is common there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of fossils are uncritical.
Yes. But sometimes it only takes a tooth to unlock a lot of information that previously we did not have. And that's very cool. Neat. Oh, that's fun. Well, my next news is not about anything new, but is new insights into previously known specimens. This is a study looking at turtle evolution and specifically where turtles fall out using X-ray micro CT scans to see things we haven't been able to see before in a lot of these specimens.
This is a news. If you hadn't chose this news, I was going to choose this one. This is a very cool paper.
Yep. I knew this one was going to get talked about, and I wanted to do it.
I put it up at the top of the news list.
Yes.
In the Archosaur section for you.
Yep. And now it is even more fitting. This is research by Xavier Jenkins et al. In Current Biology, and the article is in The Conversation, so written by the authors, and the top author in that one was Valentin Buffa et al. So, turtles, quite famously among scientists, have been difficult to pin down where they fall on the reptile family tree. That different sources of data suggest they are related to different groups or are unclear. The molecular data, so their genetics and looking at things like RNA and whatnot, suggest that they are in a close sister relationship to archosaurs, crocs, birds, dinosaurs, pterosaurs. The morphological studies, so of their skeleton and the fossil record, have been less clear, not able to pin down a clear relationship and agree with the molecular studies. And this is heavily due to the fact that turtles are very weird animals. They have very unusual anatomy. They are extremely specialized. And when that happens, it means we often lose a lot of the physical clues that might tell us who you're related to, because you've changed those bones so much that those features are no longer present or no longer recognizable to your relatives. One of the main fossils at the center of this study is Eunotosaurus africanus, which is a very well-known fossil stem turtle, in quotes now, from the Permian of South Africa. This was about a 30 centimeter long reptile, so foot long, had broad chest and wide ribs, kind of flattened ribs that look a little bit like a turtle shell. So not a full shell, but kind of turtle shell shaped.
Yeah, it looks kind of like what you might expect the early evolution of turtle shells to look like.
Exactly. So because of that, it has often been regarded as the oldest stem turtle, a proto-turtle. Not yet a true turtle, but on the path to becoming one. And therefore, it's been cited in many, many studies and in many discussions of turtle evolution. They wanted to get a closer look, so they evaluated it as well as a number of other candidates for stem turtles and a whole bunch of other fossil reptiles and turtles. More than 200 fossil reptile species were included. They used X-ray micro CT scans to get a look at the interiors and small details of these skeletons and specimens to get insights into parts and pieces of the animals that we have not actually been able to see before this kind of scan was done. One of the major areas of focus that became critical, they found, was the brain case. So the area of the skull that encapsulates the brain, that evidently is full of identifiers that just were hidden inside the brain case.
Cool.
They found that the skull of Eunotosaurus, when compared to bones of undisputed fossil turtles, lacked a lot of the features that they had and didn't look very turtley in that regard. It also has bones in the back of the skull that have been lost in turtles and all other living reptiles. So it has a very primitive skull in those regards. Some of these include things like the stapes ear bone was missing in Eunotosaurus, as well as the hooked fifth toe, which is present in many living reptiles and turtles and other fossil turtles. While the brain case of unambiguous fossil turtles like Prognocheles and such, which is also one of the oldest stem turtles we know of, this one uncontentious. It is agreed that it is indeed stem turtle.
Turtle for sure.
Does share a bunch of brain case features with archosauromorphs. All of those features are also absent in Eunotosaurus.
Okay.
So this is starting to paint the picture that A, turtles seem like they are indeed close to archosaurs. We now have the first physical evidence that supports the molecular evidence. And that Eunotosaurus doesn't seem to be a turtle.
Yeah, it looks like they took a close comparative look at all these different reptiles, found new reasons to link turtles to archosaur relatives, and Eunotosaurus fell out as not belonging here. This actually doesn't have those features.
It doesn't have the features connecting to the archosaurs or to just other turtles.
Yeah.
So like it
just
doesn't
like an
have
early
any of the
branch
things.
of reptiles.
Yes, and that is what they think it is, that it is a millereptid stem reptile, not related to turtles, some ancient lineage of reptile that we don't have
Mhm.
any modern example of anymore, which means that the features that made it look turtley probably just evolved independently, potentially convergently, because they do seem to still be similar adaptations, which we talked about in the burrowing episode are adaptations that would make a good digger and a good burrower. So it may just be that this was a unrelated reptile that also was digging burrows like ancient ancestral turtles might have also been.
Yeah. This is very exciting. This is a very cool study because for a long time now, the genetic data and the soft tissue data for turtles has been building and building in the direction of relationship to archosaurs.
Yes.
That's been sort of where the molecular information has been going, and the anatomical data has been lagging behind and like failing to catch up to that, which has left this big question of like, wow, we're wrong somewhere, right? Something isn't lining up. Finding new morphological evidence that does link turtles to archosaurs is a neat indication that we might be approaching a consensus of data at last. Like we might actually finally be converging on an answer, but also pointing out that that Unitosaurus might not be part of this lineage is extremely valuable because now we can ignore it.
Yes.
Because if you're including that in your morphological study, you're going to get a whole bunch of incorrect information because the thing you're looking at is not actually a turtle. So you're getting this conflicting information from it.
Yeah, they mentioned the fact that when Unitosaurus was included as a proto-turtle in studies and consideration in turtle evolution, a bunch of turtle features that are shared with archosaurs had to be considered that they evolved independently, and that these are a whole bunch of things that they have in some common that is just coincidence. Here, by removing it and connecting with archosaurs, those are now just ancestral features, which Occam's razor is much more satisfying in that regard.
Yeah. This is very satisfying for me because over the last few years, I've started to talk about turtles as being probably archosaurs or related to archosaurs. That's I've been sort of leaning that way. This paper's great because it suggests that I am correct to say that.
Absolutely.
Which, if it had said something different, I would have to change. And nobody wants that.
So, though turtles may not get their own month, they are now part of one of the groups that gets their own month. So, that's pretty good.
They're living vicariously through their croc cousins.
Absolutely. You can come along to the party, but you will not have one of your own.
But we do not grant you the title of month holder. Well, my last bit of news is about life in asteroid craters.
Ooh.
This is pretty cool. This is research published in Nature Communications by Jae-Soo Lim et al., and we will link in the blog post to a press release on Sci News. The life in question are stromatolites. Stromatolites are geologic structures. They are these finely layered piles of sediment formed by microbes. So the way that stromatolites work is you have a little mat of bacteria, and over time they're constantly growing on top of each other, collecting sediment and leaving behind this layered stack of sedimentary deposits. That it is a microbialite. It is a rock formation formed by microbes.
Which is very cool.
These are extremely common in the early fossil record of life on Earth. Stromatolites are the oldest definitive fossil evidence of life, and they're still forming today. There are environments in the world today where you have microbial colonies, microbial communities building stromatolite layers. These tend to be in very particular kinds of environments where you don't have a lot of animal life, because animals tend to eat these microbial mats. So the only
Yep.
places that stromatolites tend to form today are places where it's particularly salty or particularly hot, or for whatever combination of conditions, other animals aren't typically living there. This paper describes fossil stromatolites found within a relatively young impact crater.
Cool.
This is the Hapcheon crater, which is located in the Hapcheon province of South Korea. The researchers did radiocarbon dates on charcoal within the crater mixed within the impact rocks. So the rocks that were formed by the asteroid impact has these bits of charcoal in it that dated to about 42,000 years old.
Wow.
So pretty young. That's, late Pleistocene. That's not very long ago. Within the crater, there are lake sediments, which is not surprising because a crater is a big hole in the ground and they tend to form crater lakes when they fill in with water. And within those lake sediments, the researchers identified a whole bunch of stromatolites. They found, I skimmed through the data in the paper, and it sounds like at least a couple dozen stromatolites were uncovered, and a diversity of them. They varied from 5 centimeters to 20 centimeters in diameter. They also varied in their structure. Some were dome-shaped, some were column-shaped. So there was a diversity of stromatolites living in this crater lake.
Cool.
And they also found evidence that the environment and the life of these stromatolites was shaped specifically by this being an impact crater. They did some chemical isotope studies on the fossils and found, for example, depleted levels of osmium isotopes in the stromatolite layers, which is a signal of asteroid rocks, which suggests that the sediment the stromatolites were collecting included asteroid sediment, like chunks of asteroid that had fallen and deposited around. And at the same time, they found enriched europium isotopes, higher levels of certain europium isotopes, which is something we see in high temperature environments. In hydrothermal environments, warm underwater conditions, which suggests that this lake was a superheated lake environment. Probably due to the impact of the asteroid. That it created this environment where you had this geothermal, right? This thermal conditions within these lakes.
Very cool.
All of this suggests, one, that this lake was a unique environment. This wasn't just a regular lake. This was distinctive because it had been formed in a crater, and that it was a good place to be a microbial mat and to develop stromatolites. This is interesting on the face of it because this is evidence of a cool environment with some cool things living in it, but has some broad implications. Stromatolites are of intense interest to paleontologists and evolutionary scientists because, like I said, they are the oldest known direct form of life. These photosynthetic mats of microbes. And asteroid impacts are hypothesized to have been very frequent in the early formation of the Earth. And so it's possible that in early Earth, asteroid impact craters might have been centers of stromatolite diversity. Those might have been some of the environments where stromatolites were living. And where stromatolites were living, they were photosynthesizing and releasing oxygen, all of which is to say it's possible that impact craters were key parts of early Earth life diversity and early Earth ecosystems.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love the idea that asteroid comes down and hits the Earth, and especially after animals are around, would kill any animals that were there and then creates an environment where they're not going to come back and the stromatolites can hang out.
Yes.
Like just clearing the path for them.
This zone is off limits.
Yes.
This is now a what do they call it in Godzilla 2014?
Oh, quarantine.
Yes, yeah, it's like the quarantine zone. You
Yep.
can't come in here. It's all irradiated. Don't come on in. And also, of course, anything that has implications for early life on Earth could potentially have implications for early life elsewhere. And in the paper, they do make mention of the fact that another place that has a lot of craters on it is Mars.
Yeah.
And if impact craters do create these unique environments that are good places for certain forms of life, then looking at similar structures on Mars could also be an avenue for potentially finding fossil evidence of life up there.
Yes. Fascinating. If you don't think about the ecosystems that something like a asteroid or meteorite impact create.
Yeah.
Like, that's very cool.
Indeed. And that's the news. Lots of really cool, exciting news this episode. And with the news done, it is time to move on to our feature presentation. We're going to take a short musical break, and then when we get back, we will be joined by Dr. Allie Baumgardner to tell us all the things that we don't know and wish we knew about Cycads. Hello, Allie.
Hello, David.
Welcome back.
Hi, and hi, Will, as well.
Hi, Allie.
And also Will's here.
Also, Will's here.
Thrilled to have you back as always for another plant-themed episode. How's things going?
I had a lot of fun preparing for this because I do know more than the average bear about cycads. But I think the average bear only knows that cycads exist and no more.
Yes. I think Will and I both know less than the literal average bear about cycads.
Yeah.
Like if you quizzed a black bear, I think the black bear might have us beat on cycad knowledge.
Yep.
There is likely some overlap in black bear territory and cycad territory, so
See?
yes,
There
probably.
We go. So
they
Allie,
know what they look like.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So Allie, let's start out with, what do they look like? What makes a cycad? How can I tell if I am looking at a cycad?
Okay, I'm gonna be so honest with you. I don't know that you would know if you were looking at a cycad.
That's brutal but fair.
Yes.
Yep.
So they superficially look like palms, which are angiosperms, which is an entirely different group of plants, or ferns, which again are an entirely different group of plants.
See, that's what I had in my head, but I didn't know if I was just grouping a bunch of plants that I don't know a lot together.
Yeah, exactly. So cycads are gymnosperms, so they are not flowering plants. They don't have flowers, they don't have fruits. They're related to conifers and friends like that, which we'll get into a little bit more. So in general, they look like ferns or they look like small palms. So they are stout, which was one of the descriptions I saw, which I just think is so charming. With an unbranched main stem that is covered in leaf scars. So that's one of the most diagnostic things about them. So their trunks, so these stems can range in height from a few centimeters. Some are actually even subterranean, so they're like tubers under the ground, to several meters tall.
Okay.
All right.
But in general, they tend to have this, this stout trunk with large leaves. They are typically these compound fronds. They're pretty thick and stiff. Honestly, what you think of with a palm, it kind of looks like that.
Yeah.
They're typically pinnately or bipinnately compound. So pinnately compound is like a feather, right? So you have the main stalk with, the leaflets coming off. Bipinnately compound would means you have the main stalk and then the little, mini stalks coming off, and then the leaflets are coming off the mini stalks.
Yes.
Sure. So this is a leaf that you could fan somebody while they eat grapes.
Yes. Okay. This would be pretty great for that, probably. They also have circinate vernation.
Ooh, we've learned this word on the podcast before.
I'm so glad you remembered because I genuinely wasn't sure if you
And now,
would.
obviously, Will and I both remember what it means.
Yes.
But for everybody else,
Uh-huh,
please
uh-huh.
remind them.
So cercinate vernation is like the fiddlehead of a fern. So the way that they unfurl is they're like rolled up and then they unfurl out of that circle like that. I just wanted an excuse to mention cercinate vernation again because it's just it's a great phrase.
We'll put it on a shirt.
Got the golden
Absolutely.
ratio going, all that good stuff.
Exactly. They're adorable. I have so many pictures of fern fiddleheads. I think they're cute, but they're not cycads, so we're not going to get into that.
We did ferns.
We did. We already did this.
Episode 215. That's probably where we learned about cercinate vernation.
that is when you learned about cercinate vernation. So cycads tend to be very slow growing and very long lived. So that's going to come up again and again and again, but they last a very long time. It takes a while for them to grow very large. They are dioecious. So dioecious means two houses. It means that they have separate male and female structures on the same plant.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so they have pollen cones that are small and compact. Their pollen have flagella.
Oh yeah.
Whoa, little swimmy tails.
Yes, which is one of my favorite things for like about pollen. I love when pollen has flagella.
Well,
That's
because it's so
awesome.
rare that you
Yes.
think of anything having to do with a plant being mobile and,
Yes.
and like actively moving.
Yes.
So the fact that they have
Yeah.
pollen that's that way is very neat.
Yes. Yes.
Listeners, if you're struggling to picture pollen with a flagellum, that's a sperm cell. That's how
Yeah.
sperm cells move. Is they've got the little wiggly tail that they swim.
Yes. And it's, male.
Yeah, and
Yep.
it's the same thing. It is a
It is
convergent sperm cell.
The
That's
same
awesome.
thing. Exactly. So there is a misconception about cycads and their pollination. So conifers and ginkgos, which are two of the more charismatic, I would say, groups of gymnosperms, are wind pollinated.
Yes.
And if you've ever lived somewhere with a bunch of conifers, you are so aware of the fact that they are wind pollinated.
So it covers your cars.
Exactly. Everywhere. But neophytes, which is another group of gymnosperms, and cycads are actually pollinated by insects.
I was wondering. Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
All different types of insects, but a lot of the time it's beetles.
Oh,
And so in
sure.
order to attract these beetles, they can produce heat or smells.
Ooh.
In fact, cycads, I found a paper that was talking about pollination of seed plants. So cycads collectively account for more than half of all known thermogenic plant species.
Whoa.
Ooh.
Right. So thermogenic meaning they are producing their own heat.
Yeah. So this is something that we've also done gymnosperms, episode 155. We talked about gymnosperms. Using bugs to pollinate your plants is something we think of a lot with angiosperms, flowering plants. And flowering plants are experts at using animal pollinators. That's what the flowers are for, and also the fruit
Yes.
and all that stuff.
Yes.
Gymnosperms, we don't tend to think of doing that as much.
Right.
And they don't have flowers.
Correct.
So fascinating to see what a gymnosperm does to achieve this. How do you manage to do the flower thing without flowers?
And the thing about cycads in particular is they are on the list of plants that have been at some time thought to be the ancestor of angiosperms.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yes. And if you once we get into the female cones, you're like, "Oh, yes, this makes sense." So, they have the male and the female cones. So the female cones are the seed cones. So they are modified leaves on megasporophylls, similar to what we had with like the ferns. So the seeds are aggregated into cones. The seeds are large and bright colors. So like very often red or purple or yellow. I saw a picture that was of a cycad. I wanted to say fruit. It's not a fruit. Cycad cone with all of these bright red seeds, and it looks so similar to a lot of magnolia fruit. So magnolia is an angiosperm. They're a basal angiosperm. They are also pollinated by beetles. So I completely see the logic of, oh, how closely related are you two? Another interesting thing about cycads is they are super toxic. Like, super toxic.
Just rude. Just really like Regina George.
So the psi is for cyanide, I assume.
Not quite. So it's cycacin, which is a carcinogenic and neurotoxic glucoside. Excuse me.
Oh.
Yes. So it induces hepatotoxicity. So it ruins your liver.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a lot of information about like dogs eating cycads, and it's really bad. If it's treated real quick, maybe, but it's not great because basically all parts of the plant have these toxins. So don't go chewing on cycads unless you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing associated with cycad toxicity are the Zamia staggers. So Zamia is a genus of cycad.
Mm-hmm.
The Zamia stagger is what happens to cattle that browse on the cones or leaves of these
That's
cycads.
what I was wondering. Is they begin staggering?
So this has been known in Australia since the 1860s. The government really looked into it in the 1880s. So basically, it is caused by the irreversible paralysis of the hind legs.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yes.
So cycads, that's hoof.
Yeah, we don't mess around with cycads, okay?
Yeah.
It's not often that you think about plants having neurotoxins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you said neurotoxin,
I did.
neurotoxic and carcinogenic, which
Yes.
are like that on the list of things that can happen to your body.
Yeah.
Those are that's at the top. Those are real bad.
Those are two of the worst.
Those are two bad choices.
Correct. Yeah, so cycads not messing around. They've been around for a while. They've learned a thing or two about persisting. They're not messing around.
Well, and you have to balance attracting animals and deterring animals.
Yes.
Right. Especially if you are intentionally making some part of the plant accessible and appealing to animals for pollination. You have to be able to then defend yourself when the animals come along.
Yes, interact with this part and only this part. And if not, you will suffer the consequences.
Yes. This is why every rose has its thorns.
Yeah.
Yes. And it makes sense that the way they're attracting things is with smell and heat, but not fruit and edible bits.
Right.
Like, it is very much like, yeah, we are not for eating, but if you want to come warm up and get some of our pollen,
right,
come on over. Interesting.
So, Allie, you mentioned that it was at one point thought that cycads were perhaps closely related to angiosperms.
Mm-hmm.
Who are cycads closely related to in reality?
Great question. So they are gymnosperms. So as I mentioned before, even on this podcast, gymnosperms include 4 main groups within that. So there's the conifers, which, pine trees, things like that. They are the charismatic major part of gymnosperms that most people think of. Then you have the ginkgos, then you have the cycads, and you have the neophytes. Neophytes and cycads are kind of the weirdos of the gymnosperms, and I love them both so much. So cycads are actually in their own division.
Okay.
So if we're talking about, hierarchy, taxonomic hierarchy, in plants, division, Cycadophyta, is the same rank as phylum.
Okay.
We don't use phylum in plants for reasons I do not know.
Because it sounds too much like phylum, which
honestly,
leaves.
Probably.
Right, that would just be confusing.
That would just be confusing. Can't possibly have that. But typically when we are talking about cycads, we are referring to the order Cycadales.
Okay.
So, genetic studies of cycads sometimes put them as sister to gymnosperms.
Okay, so not
Okay.
gymnosperms, so actually outside of gymnosperms.
Yes, gymnosperm adjacent, but most recent work puts them most closely related to ginkgos.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. So, they're not closely related to anything they look like.
I was going to say that would have been really convenient, so I knew it wasn't going to happen.
No, of course not. To add to the further confusion, so they look like palms, they look like ferns. In the fossil record, you can confuse them with ferns
Mm-hmm.
or Bennettitalians. So again, there's just a lot of, this is a good shape for plant.
Yeah. It feels like it's a very easy shape to like expand upon. That like it's a fairly simple way to make a big broad leaf surface by just making a bunch of leaves coming off of a stem. So you get the benefits of being a giant leaf, but you're not actually having to make a giant leaf. It's
Right, and they're not woody, so they don't have to deal with that. They're just made up of a bunch of leaf scars, honestly, in the same sort of way that a palm is leaves and lies.
Yeah.
They do have that in common. There are some particular ways about like the way that their vasculature works. They have something called girdling leaf scars. So basically, like the vascular strands go all the way around the stem, which is very obvious and very indicative of cycads, but it's a little in the weeds, as it were, of cycads. But yes, it has been confusing trying to figure out who cycads are related to, but it looks like with genetic studies, they are gymnosperms. They are most closely related to ginkgos. They're not related to anything that they look like.
So, cycads being this sort of offshoot, odd, not really all that similar to anybody, but also similar to a lot of other things.
Yes.
That kind of group I often associate with being relatively rare and low diversity, right? Because we think of that with a bunch of animals, like I'm thinking like tuataras are an example of that. And cycads, I think of cycads as being rare and low diversity, but I also don't know anything about cycads. How many cycads are there? How many living species are there?
Okay, so I'm going to say something that sounds impressive, and then I'm going to qualify it.
Okay.
So of the 4 groups of gymnosperms, cycads are second only to conifers in terms of diversity.
Whoa, that sounds impressive.
Yeah, it does, right? It goes conifers and then cycads. And then you realize there's not a lot of other things.
I was gonna say, isn't there like one ginkgo species?
Yes, there is one ginkgo species.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm saying. But there are a whopping 2 families. There used to be 3, but there's 2.
Okay.
And about 10 genera. And then this is when it gets really interesting to me, because I looked in multiple places to get the number of species. So I looked back at my notes from when I took paleobotany in my PhD. So this was in approximately 2016, 2017. And in my notes, it says there were about 300 species.
Okay.
I looked at the textbook for that class, which was from 2009, and it said that there were approximately 185 species.
Okay.
So our understanding and description of cycads has really taken off in the last decade. So the most current number is probably upwards of 360 modern species.
Okay. So cycad diversity in terms of species number is pretty similar to turtles.
Oh, that's great. Yes, this is a lovely comparison. I feel like they'd be friends. They've been around for the same amount of time.
Yeah. They just keep meeting at different time periods through Earth history.
We don't really know who they're related to.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't look like anybody else.
So are there
excellent.
ocean-going cycads? because we just talked a lot about.
That's true.
No.
7 living species of marine cycads. But they nest
no.
on beaches. They
Yes.
have to crawl up onto the land.
So one of the fun facts about cycads, that it's one of the things I actually remembered from when I was taking paleobotany as like one of the like cool fun facts about cycads, is that with one exception, genera are restricted to a single continent. Big ol' air quotes for continent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We'll get to that in a second. So
Yeah.
about 68% of cycad species, though, are threatened with extinction.
Yeah.
Also
Yeah.
like turtles.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
we'll get into more of that. But yes, that's one of the really interesting things about cycads is the genera are they can be widespread, but they don't really cross oceans.
Yeah.
Interesting. So where are cycads? Where do cycads live?
So they are found primarily in low latitudes. This is a primarily tropical group.
Mm-hmm.
They are found on every continent except Europe, but that's Eurasia, so that barely counts.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And Antarctica, which
Sure.
that checks out.
The opposite of tropics.
Correct. Yes, and I mean, those are the 2 continents that don't have any part of them that you would call tropical. So, yep, checks out. They live in a bunch of different habitats. So they are often forest understory in rainforests or tropical seasonal forests. Sometimes they can actually be part of the canopy.
Oh.
In some places, they basically make savannas. So they are in these stands in grasslands. So instead of the trees on the savanna, it's cycads.
Cool.
And then some species in the genus Encephalarctos in East Africa actually grow at high elevations. And so they are adapted to deal with low rainfall, harsh winds, dry soil, frost, or even snow.
All right. So they're not all solely warm weather, but they are tend to be found in tropic regions, even if they're getting up high.
Correct. Yes. So, and again, this is like they've been around for a long time, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later on. Like many gymnosperms, they used to have a way larger range.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the Cenozoic happened.
It
Yep.
sounds like they're also they tend not to be the major plant life in
Correct.
their habitat. Right.
Correct.
They tend to be, they're in the forest. Although you said that on the savannas, you'll get the cycads being very prominent features.
Yes.
which
Yeah,
is
and they'll be
interesting.
little stands because sometimes their trunks can be several meters tall. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna because there's only 10 genera, I am gonna go through them all and just like rapid fire tell you where they are, and then we'll
Let's
get
do it.
into broader patterns. So the family Cycadaceae, which that's the cycad family,
Yep.
has one genus, which is Cycas. Which again, like that's the cycad genus. This checks out.
Mhm.
This is the only genus that spans multiple continents. So this is
Cool.
found in Asia, East Africa, and Oceania.
Okay.
Cool.
Everybody else gets one, depending on your definition, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
The other family is Zamiaceae. I mentioned Zamia before. So with these genera, you get one continent. So Diowan is my favorite genus of cycad. I'm just going to tell you now, it's Diowan. The reason it's Diowan is one, that's a fun name to say. It's got 2 consecutive O's in it.
Diowan does, and maybe I'm biased
Uh-huh.
because of the conversation we were all having shortly before we started recording.
Thank you.
Diowan,
this is where-
Diowan sounds like a Star Wars planet.
my young Diowan.
Yes.
Absolutely. 100%. I'm so on board. Yes. So Diowan, the other reason I'm biased towards Diowan is because my PhD advisor's PhD advisor had a cycad that was Diowan. I checked. I made a note of it in my paleobotany notes. So Leo Hickey was my PhD advisor's PhD advisor.
feel like we should start using like your great advisor.
Yes,
Yeah.
my grand advisor.
Your grand advisor, yeah.
Yes. So my grand advisor, he got it as a gift from one of his PhD students, like, or I think probably a bunch of them because it's probably really expensive. But anyway, and so he was at Yale, and that is a cold place. And so the last person to leave, I think it was the last person to leave for Christmas break, their responsibility was to bring the plant back inside. And so you didn't want to be the last one to leave for break because otherwise you had to bring this plant inside, and like they're prickly, right? Between the leaf scars and like the really stiff leaves. Yeah, you don't want to be the one that has to bring in the cycad. Anyway, so they are native to Mexico and Central America. In that same family, you have Macrozamia, found in Australia, Lepidosamia, also found in Australia, Encephalarctos, which I mentioned before, which is found in Africa, Boenia, which is found in Australia. We're sensing a pattern here. Ceratozamia, which is in Mexico and Central America. Stangeria, which used to have its own family, is found in Africa. Zamia, which is the name of this family, is in North, Central, and South America, as well as the Caribbean.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So we're calling this one continent for the sake of
Yeah,
this
sure.
biogeography. And then Microcycus is in Cuba.
Okay. So that second to last one is the one that overlaps with black bears. I was waiting.
Correct.
I was wondering when we were going to get there.
I was keeping track of the average bear. So I went through and I was trying to figure out, how abundant are these different genera. So a couple of them only have one or two species. So like Boenia, Stangeria, Microcycus, those only have one or two species. So South Africa, I'm going to give you some fun facts about, different parts of the world and their relationship to cycads. So in South Africa, that country alone is home to almost 40 species of cycads.
Ooh.
Wow.
So that's the most of any country in Africa. It is Stangeria, which has one species, and then the rest of them are all in the genus Encephalarctos. So that's it. So there's a bunch of species, and they're all in one genus. Australia is home to almost 80 species, and they're across 3 different genera. So Boenia, which only has 2 species, Cycas, and Macrozamia. Mexico has about 60 species in 3 different genera, Ceratozamia, Diowan, and Zamia. So the species diversity of cycads is highest in Mexico.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yes. But Australia has the highest phylogenetic diversity.
Yes. The most widely related groups.
Yes. So there's 4 genera, 3 of which are endemic.
Yeah.
So yeah, the fact that they are so, compartmentalized, like this is my territory, this is my territory, this is my territory, is one of the things that I find most fascinating about cycads.
Well, they have an interesting mixture of, they're not, super rare in that like there's not just a few dozen species, there's hundreds. They are pretty much global, even if they're not in every single environment, they're around the planet.
Right.
They are in various ecosystems, but they are then often not the dominant one in the ecosystem. They're a single group is isolated to single areas. So it's this weird, interesting balance of they are not rare, but they're not just widespread generally. They are technically widespread, but only in certain ways.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's the thing, is that, they're not particularly common. But they're not there. And like the fact that there are 10 genera, like that's not nothing.
Yeah. Well, it also seems like they've got some pretty significant barriers to dispersal. That they aren't getting around very well. And it sounds like, because they are restricted within their particular little groups, that like They made it circumglobal, right, throughout the whole tropics, but then they've kind of stayed where they are
Yes.
for the most part. And that does make some sense if they are not very good at crossing the ocean,
Yes.
which, you know, a lot of plants are not.
Right.
But also if they're really limited to the tropics.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense, because
Yes.
not only does that mean you can't go up into northern North America or Asia, it also means you can't cross into one, you know, the continent next door.
Correct. Yes, that's exactly it. So not only can you not really go, you know, up latitude or down latitude, you can't get into the more polar latitudes, and you can't go interior.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
you have the
Mhm.
dry continental interiors, which is less of a thing in like Africa and South America. But oh, buddy, is that a thing in the northern hemisphere? You know,
Mhm.
the inside of these continents is very arid, and that's just not something that they're really cut out for. So yes, in terms of dispersal, you know, how would they cross oceans? They don't really have what it takes. They're not wind pollinated, and that's the really, you know, far distance pollination strategy. And they're not animal dispersed, which can help you a
Yes.
whole lot in terms of getting far away.
Yeah.
So, and they are very long lived, they're very slow growing. And
Yeah.
so wherever they get, they're getting there slowly.
Yeah. Very interesting.
I do, even though they are orders of magnitude more speciose than tuataras, I still have they still give off a tuatara vibe to me of just like,
Yeah.
you know, we're doing this thing. And yes, technically it has been changing for hundreds of millions of years, but it doesn't seem like it.
Well,
Yeah.
it's the comparison I was thinking of, unsurprisingly, but we're in the month of it, so I'm allowed to make as many
Sure.
comparisons as I want, is Crocs.
Oh, absolutely.
That similar area of the planet,
Yep.
and other than a couple of hot spots, like most places, you're going to find one croc species, one
Right.
croc, one gator, one gharial. You know, South America and, you know, some parts of like Africa
hmm
are the exception, but otherwise you're dealing with a fairly limited diversity where they are, even though they are around the planet.
Right. Yeah, and they do, I mean, if nothing else, they're the same texture as a croc.
Right?
Yes.
Scaly, old, long-lived, very cool.
Pointy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not wind dispersed.
I also want to be the one having to bring them inside before Christmas break.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
A lot of similarities.
Mm-hmm.
So what else is there about cycads? Do they, you know, we've talked about their anatomy and their reproduction being sort of distinct. Are there other things about, do they live in an unusual way? What makes their sort of whole deal distinctive?
Honestly, the thing that is most unique about them, one we have talked about, it is that kind of like fleshy cone, which led to them possibly, you know, being hypothesized to be the ancestor of angiosperms. But
Mhm.
honestly, the real big thing is that they're tropical.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something that you normally associate with gymnosperms.
Yeah, I was thinking
That's
that.
true. Because
Right.
conifers are very, very, very often northern, you know, high latitude.
Correct. So, some two of the big strengths of conifers is their adaptation for cold and arid environments.
Mhm.
Yes.
And I feel like cycads are kind of the inverse of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
When
many
you
ways.
said the arid interiors were a barrier, I did have that moment of like, oh, so these are like wet plants, not
Yeah.
dry plants, which is just not what I expect from non-angiosperms.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
they can do some degree of aridity, right? They're sometimes found in grasslands, but by and large, that's not the most common place that you will find them.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is they're not temperate. Like they can be temperate, but that is kind of the exception. So even though you'll find some species in like parts of southern Africa, right? Literally South Africa has so many species, and that is temperate, but it doesn't really get into the more northern parts of North America. You
Mhm.
are not going to find a cycad that's going to survive the winter here in Michigan, or honestly, even in Tennessee. Like, that's
Yeah.
still probably too far north for them to be happy. They might tough it out. The only other group of gymnosperm that will really live in tropical environments are the neophytes.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
And they're also found in like, tropical rainforests. So they're in, similar sorts of environments. Because ginkgo, the singular ginkgo, that's a temperate plant.
Yeah.
I mean, I have them here. I know they're in
Yes.
Tennessee because I
Yes,
remember
they are.
them.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
what it's interesting to think of this particular group of gymnosperms as being very tropical adapted, because the tropics is very, I mean, it should call the tropics choked with plants feels a little bit, but also, I mean, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
There's a lot of plants there.
Plant infested.
Yes, exactly. And maybe this might be a silly question. What is it that allows ginkgos to survive alongside all of this other really successful diversity? Like, you got to think that one of the benefits for conifers of not living in the tropics is they don't have to put up with the million other species of plants that they're competing with and animals that are causing trouble. What is it? What is special about cycads that they can handle that?
Cycads are playing a long game. Like, that's the thing.
Mm.
They are long lived. They are gonna stick around, and eventually they'll get their moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Once again, like crocs.
Yes. And that's pretty much it. Because the thing about conifers, they're also long lived. That's kind of the thing about gymnosperms is they're slow, they live a long time. But in particular, like, cycads are like particularly known for this, even within gymnosperms. But yeah, that's honestly kind of just the way that gymnosperms survive when surrounded by these young upstarts, the angiosperms. The funny
Yeah.
thing about neophytes, and I'd love to do an episode about neophytes at some point.
All right, listeners, send in your requests.
Ask for this, please. But slight spoiler, one of the similarities between neophytes and cycads is, which, they're the only groups that live in the tropics, and they both have kind of fleshy fruit-like structures. Their
Yeah.
seeds look more angiosperm. Neophytes, honestly, I saw one in the collection the other day, and every time I see one, I'm like, I would think that was an angiosperm if I ever met that in the wild.
Yeah, I did actually want to go back to that. So their cones are fleshy.
Yes.
So a conifer cone, like a pine cone,
Yep.
is woody. What is that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's made of wood or something very wood-like, right? It's that hard wood-like structure.
Yeah.
So a cycad cone is fleshy like a fruit, so it's squishy.
I need to figure out a way to describe this in a way that you will understand.
Yeah.
Because the
Explain it like I'm 5 and have never seen a plant.
Yes, that second part is the really important part.
If you could explain it in crocodilian terms, that would be
okay.
Which organ of a croc is it? Like the liver?
Okay.
It's like
okay. All right. This. Oh my goodness. All right. The actual explanation, which is not going to mean anything to you, but maybe to someone who is listening, it looks reminiscent of the fruits of a magnolia before they like come off on their funicular strands. Since you don't know what magnolia fruit look like,
or funicular strands,
imagine, if you will. Oh my goodness gracious! Imagine, if you will, that you took a pine cone and then you covered the outside in grapes.
Okay.
All right.
So the seeds are like all of the grapes on the outside of this cone.
Yeah. But they've got like pods.
Correct.
Like
they're separate.
They've got like each little capsule of a seed.
So they're seeds. It's not that they are, encompassed as a fruit with actually like fleshy. It's just they're kind of, the seeds are enlarged and bright red, like you would expect to see in a fruit. So yeah, it's basically, I was gonna compare it to another fruit you've never seen. So that would not be, man, y'all need to look at more plants.
Right now, I'm picturing kind of like a corn cob
Yeah, it's corn. Why didn't I think of corn?
This is what I'm here for, is the plant analogies. That's what my purpose
I
on
am
this
frankly devastated that as a Midwesterner, it didn't occur to me to compare it to corn, which
Don't
is
worry,
one of my
Allie.
favorite foods. I'm devastated.
Let me explain corn to you. I got this.
Oh my god. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
I'm gonna live off of this for the next Alley episodes. This is gonna be what carries me through.
Put in your request now for a corn episode.
Oh my god. I'm
All corn,
crying, guys.
all
I'm
the time.
crying.
Well, I know what corn is. It's like corn. It's like corn on the cob. Yeah,
Obviously, but honestly, it is a lot like corn.
Yeah.
Great.
Just each of the
Bright
things
red
is
corn.
a
Yes.
seed
Yes.
instead of
Oh,
being
my God.
actually fruity.
Oh,
So-
I'm crying.
I do have one more question about
I'm
the
ready.
lives of cycads. So you talked about how they're pollinated by insects, most often beetles. You also talked about how they are horrifyingly toxic.
Yes.
Who eats cycads, if anybody?
So,
And by who I mean animals, but also if there's like
Yeah.
people that eat them, sure, that's fun too.
Who dares?
who dares? Well, I mean, we did talk about the Zamia staggers.
Mhm,
So, I
mhm.
mean, you can
Right.
try to eat them and
Yes.
perhaps, regret it.
Everything can be eaten once.
Correct. In general, mammals don't eat it. It's very toxic to them.
Yeah.
That red color is in fact a warning.
Yeah.
Sometimes you will get some who might try it. Maybe birds will eat it a little bit, but it's insects. So
Yeah.
there are butterflies that, especially like they're caterpillars. So there's the cycad blue butterfly that will eat cycads.
All right.
And the thing about eating toxic plants
Yes.
is it makes you toxic.
Yeah.
Caterpillars were going to be my bet because that's like monarchs. That's what makes
Yes.
them
Yes.
famous with milkweed.
Uh-huh.
And so
Right.
I felt like if anyone was going to do it, a caterpillar was going to be out there like, no, I can use this.
Yes. Well, and also I try to stop a caterpillar from eating something.
Yeah,
Like,
Exactly.
they are voracious.
Yes. They're like, does it photosynthesize? Then it's lunch.
I
nom,
mean,
nom, nom. I'm hungry and hungry.
there is a whole book about the
Mhm.
fact that they are hungry.
Yeah. So like, does that make them neurotoxic caterpillars?
Or
Ooh, I am
carcinogenic?
not.
Yeah.
I don't need to
Cancer.
find out.
Don't smoke these caterpillars.
Don't do it. The cancer get right into your lungs.
So there are some cultures where parts of them are eaten. A lot of this is for like ritual sort of things,
Yeah.
which makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Do not eat these unless you know what you're doing, please. It's not
Yes.
my fault if something bad happens to you. I told you not to.
This podcast should not be treated as medical advice.
Correct. I'm not that kind of doctor, y'all.
That's true.
So, in some parts of the world, the seeds were made into flour. But again, that has actually, there's evidence to suggest that that is leading to some, long-term problems. So, just, yeah, I mean, like you said, you can eat anything once. In general, without a lot of processing, and unless you're looking for a very specific outcome, not really good for, nutrition.
Well, that also lines up with why they might be doing so well around angiosperms, because not only are they long-lived, so they take advantage of an opportunity when it comes around, but they have put a lot of effort into making sure they are not first on the menu for basically anyone.
Or even second. They are so
Yes.
far
Yes.
so far down on the menu. So there are some animals, like I kind of mentioned, so some birds or flying foxes. These animals will apparently eat some of the fleshy covering of the seeds.
Yeah.
So again, it's very specific, the parts that you can and cannot eat, but that'll lead to bioaccumulation.
Yeah.
So the flying foxes will eat it, and then if humans eat it, that leads to problems for the person who ate the flying fox.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's something
Well,
that you don't think about as much on land ecosystems. Like
Mm-hmm.
typically you
yeah.
think about that in the ocean with like
Yes.
toxins building up. That's very cool that it's like, yeah, don't eat the flying foxes. Like, oh, do they have diseases? No, they eat the wrong plant and they can
Yes.
handle it. You can't.
Yes. They're tougher than you are.
Well, fortunately, most of our audience is in North America and Europe,
Oh,
so
excellent.
not in danger of eating cycads. The other huge contingent of our audience is Australian, but we don't have to tell Australians not to go eating stuff you find in Australia. You
Yeah.
know.
I mean, Australia is where most of the examples I was finding of like
Yes.
toxicity were.
Yeah, of course it was. That's what you go to Australia for.
That's true. And also they have a whole lot of diversity of cycads there. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Even the
Well-
plants there are toxic.
I feel like, besides all of these fascinating things that we've already discussed, the thing that is maybe most famous about cycads is that they're very, very ancient.
Yes.
Right? Like cycads, paleo artists love to put cycads in artwork of dinosaurs and stuff.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So let's take a short break, and then when we get back, let's go into the evolutionary history of cycads and find
Yeah.
out just how ancient they are.
Ooh.
So, Allie, when do cycads show up in the fossil record?
When do you think they show up?
Triassic.
Okay, Will, do you have a guess?
That was a bad guess.
Uh,
Carboniferous. I said it and I was like, no, we're not doing reptiles anymore. It's definitely no, let's go with Carboniferous.
Yeah, Carboniferous sounds good.
Although Allie is now making a face that makes me think that I'm wrong.
Yep. I have no actual guess. All I know is that there are fossils, which is the only reason I've been calm this whole episode.
This is not a
'cause I knew
cactus
going
situation.
in. I knew that you weren't going to be able to. I had no doubts. It's the only reason I felt safe.
We don't need that Gru meme.
That's so funny. So David, you were correct that Triassic was a bad guess.
See? I knew it.
And Carboniferous was a great guess.
Hey!
Good work. Good work. So the oldest probable fossils show up in the Pennsylvanian.
Okay. Late Carboniferous.
Correct. So roughly 300 million years ago in South Korea and China, like that neck of the woods. So they're in the genus Crossozamia. Makes sense. Zamia, yep, that's one of the families of cycads. Unambiguous fossils, like we're very confident that these are cycads, are known from the Middle Permian onward.
Okay.
Again, especially in that neck of the woods, China area. They're not super common in the Permian, but we know that they are cycads and they are present in the Permian.
Okay.
Cool.
So many of the, I'm going to talk about this briefly, many of the Mesozoic cycads that we have are more amorphous species than biological species, like distinct taxonomic units. We know that they're probably different from other things, but they might not all be the same thing.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
In general, reproductive structures of cycads are pretty rare. And when they are found, they're often overlooked or have little to unclear phylogenetic value. So even if they're there, they're not necessarily helpful if people are even looking at them. They're often actually identified by their distinctive leaf cuticle.
Hmm.
So cuticle is basically just this layer that's on top of the leaves. And when you have different types of leaf preservation, sometimes you will get cuticle preserved. And it's really, really helpful for looking at like cell structure. So you can do
Yeah.
this in all sorts of different leaves. I have personally never worked on a fossil locality that actually preserves cuticle, but apparently it's really cool when it does.
So it'd be giving you an idea of like what the cell arrangement is.
Yeah, so basically it can give you these very specific, very micro level structures.
Cool.
In Cycads, they're very distinct. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but they are very distinct in Cycads. The people who
Yeah,
work
yeah.
on cuticle are able to identify Cycads by their cuticle.
Neat.
So one of the other examples of a middle Triassic cycad that I found is from Antarctica, which is always fun when you have plant fossils from Antarctica. So this is not really a fossil in and of itself. It is kind of a we think all of these morphospecies are actually parts of this one species.
Right. So a morphospecies is when really it's a type of shape of
Yes.
thing
Yes.
more so than a distinct species of thing.
Correct. These are the things that are the same shape that are probably different from things that are a different shape, but may not be, and may not actually be all the same as the things that are the same shape. But it's a useful way of grouping things when you have nothing
Yeah.
else.
Well, it's like grouping footprint, fossils
Yes.
and stuff
Mhm.
of we
Yeah.
don't know who made it, but it's got the same number of toes, it's roughly the same size, and it's got these other features that they're in the same pattern. So
Yes.
it's the same group.
And as Allie has discussed before on the podcast, plants sometimes the same species of plant will get multiple morpho species because the leaf is a different shape from the root, which is a different shape from the seed, and they don't always preserve in the same place.
Right. Or associated.
So you might end up giving different species names
Yeah.
to different parts of the same plant.
Right, exactly. And unless you actually find them preserved together, it's a
Mhm.
hypothesis. So that's what this is. So it is a hypothetical combination of the vegetative organ taxa Arctic Cycas, Shopfii, and Gelchophyllum omegapetalaris, which omegapetalaris is a great epithet. And then
Yeah.
the pollen cone taxon, Delamea spinulosa. So basically, all of these different things are found from the same time period for basically the same area, the same sort of depositional environment, meaning maybe this is all the same plant. But
Yeah.
regardless, there is at least one, if not three, species of cycad found in Antarctica during the Middle Triassic.
Neat.
So it sounds like this first 100 million years or so of cycad fossil history, we've got them from the Carboniferous through the Triassic. We've got some number of species, different shapes of them. What do we know about the evolutionary beginnings of this group? Do we know where they were? Do we know what sort of lifestyle they were doing? What do we know about that?
Fortunately, unlike some of the groups we've talked about, we do actually know some things about the early origins of this group. So, as I mentioned, we know they originated in Laurasia in the Carboniferous.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time we get to the Jurassic, they have expanded into Gondwana. So they start
right.
off as this northern group, and then by the time we get into the Mesozoic, they are found globally.
Yeah.
So for this expansion, Antarctica and Greenland were crucial biogeographic crossroads. So this allowed them to get everywhere that we needed to go, right? So I
Yeah.
mentioned we, again, because I am a cycad. So we mentioned that we had this Antarctic fossil in the Triassic. So we know that they're there. We know that they are in Antarctica in the Triassic. This is part of this expansion. So in terms of what environment they lived in, they tended to favor drier habitats.
Interesting.
So one of the things that I believe I mentioned on the podcast before is that gymnosperms in the Carboniferous were more upland species. So they were not found in the coal swamps so much. They were found further away, which also means not a great fossil record from that
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
Just that's just not the environments that are really being preserved. So there's some pollen, there's definitely pollen preservation, but you don't really get macro fossils of cycads from their earliest record. You'll get some, but they're much less common. And it's therefore unclear how much of their rise that we see throughout the end of the Paleozoic and into the Mesozoic is real in terms of, this increase in diversification, or is this they're finally moving into environments where they're preserved.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
we can't
it's-
we can't really tell the difference between more numbers, in general, or more in places that get preserved in the fossil record.
It's the Cambrian explosion question of, did life actually biodiversify at the rate it looks like, or did they just start getting body parts that
Yes.
fossilize?
Yes.
And that's what we're seeing.
Exactly. So we do know that they were part of the dominant flora in tropical areas in Europe and North America as the climate became more arid. So they were able to move in once it started once the rains forests were collapsing. That's when the gymnosperms were able to come in, and cycads were part of that flora. There are fossil cycads known from every continent. And this is actual every continent, including Antarctica, including Europe. Everybody gets cycads in the fossil record.
Very cool. Now, I have heard the Mesozoic era, the age of reptiles, also referred to as an age of cycads.
My paleobotany textbook calls the Mesozoic the age of cycads.
Great. So
The competing advertising firms.
Correct.
what were cycads doing in the Mesozoic?
So there is some evidence to suggest that they looked a little bit different than they do in the modern.
Mm-hmm.
So as I mentioned at the top, the modern cycads, I was going to say, are short and stout. They're not all that short, but right, they look like a miniature palm, or maybe not so miniature palm, with these compound leaves, sometimes pinnate, sometimes bipinnate. So in the fossil record, their leaves can range from entire, so that would basically be like an undissected, a completely smooth, no chunks taken out of it leaf, to dissected, to fully compound like we have today. So some groups may have had what's called a long shoot, short shoot habit. This is something that we see in, say, ginkgos. We're definitely not seeing that in any of our modern cycads. They might have had more slender stems with more widely separated leaves. They could have even been deciduous. But a lot of this knowledge of what the whole plant looked like is very tenuous. It's based on things that are not necessarily preserved together. They might not even be parts of the same plant. They might not even be cycads. So take all of this with a grain of salt. But they did become very widely distributed in the Mesozoic into the early Cenozoic. There's a reason why my textbook called it the age of cycads.
Yeah.
So during the Triassic and Jurassic, which is really the heyday of cycads, they made up on their own roughly 20% of the world flora.
Ooh.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say like 20% of in a certain habitat or in a certain group. Wow. Okay.
In the world.
Yeah. Every fifth plant you came across was
Yes.
a cycad.
Yeah. And this, of course, is before the flowering plant radiation.
And that's key. That is so
Yeah.
important because, again, we're talking about the Triassic and the Jurassic. And sometime in the Jurassic or like Cretaceous, somewhere in there is when we get the rise of angiosperms. And by the time we get into the middle and late Cretaceous, this is an angiosperm world. So
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
Triassic and Jurassic is the moment that the cycads really get to shine. So, and part of the reason for this, the end Triassic extinctions, which we don't really talk about much.
Episode 15.
Yes, we talked about it here, obviously.
we talked about it over here.
Obviously, at the very beginning, obviously.
It's not one of the bigger of the big five.
No, it's really
No.
not. It's it's one you might forget about. And also around that time, I mean, in comparison to the end Permian, the end Triassic is,
Mhm.
not
it is
nearly as
sandwiched
exciting.
directly in between the two most famous extinction events in Earth history.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of feel bad for the end Triassic. But anyway, these extinctions really impacted particular groups of gymnosperms.
Mm.
So, of the 48 families of gymnosperms, 23 went extinct.
Wow.
Right? That's rough. That's
Yeah,
nearly half of them.
especially for plants, which tend to
Yes.
do pretty okay through extinction
Mhm.
events.
Yes, exactly. Like, this is this doesn't happen with plants.
Yes.
So, but that means that the groups that were left over suddenly had less competition from similar types of plants and could go
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
So when we do talk about the Triassic extinction, we often bring it up in the context of being the extinction event that laid the groundwork for dinosaurs.
Yes.
Because so many of these other terrestrial groups of animals went extinct, dinosaurs had the space to take over. It
Right.
sounds like a very similar thing happened with cycads.
This is the way that cycads are not like crocs.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, that is.
Mhm.
Yes, we have found the distinction.
Yes. This is the difference between what happened to cycads at the end of the Triassic. Yes, exactly. And it meant that everyone who made it through suddenly had so much more room to diversify in a similar way to the dinosaurs. So during the Jurassic, we had this latitudinal expansion of their ranges. So they were always kind of found in the low latitudes in the tropics, right? They say so they had moved in there from being in the drier environments at the end of the Carboniferous and into the Permian. So now they're commonly found in these low latitudes in the tropics. So like Western North America, Europe, Central Asia, East Asia. And they're found with who you would expect to find them with. You've got ferns, you've got sphenophytes, so that's going to be things like horsetails, equisetum, one of my favorite plants because I'm a paleobotanist, and that's a cliche. As well as other types of gymnosperms, like the ginkgos, like the Bennettitalians, conifers, etc. So they made it into the northern and southern middle latitudes by the late Jurassic. And then in the early Cretaceous, they're common in the northern middle latitudes, so Europe, North America. So they've really, by the end of the Jurassic, they did it. They've basically gone everywhere. And then the Cretaceous hits.
Yeah.
And you know what else occurs and becomes widespread in the Cretaceous? Angiosperms.
Yep.
And so we see a significant decline in cycads in the late Cretaceous in particular. By the time you get into the Cenozoic, they're getting pretty rare. So they're very much outcompeted, not just by the angiosperms, but by the conifers.
Yep.
Oh, sure. Up in
Right.
those temperate zones, I would imagine.
Yes. And continental interiors and all those sorts of places. So, as I mentioned, cycads are second only to conifers, but they are second to conifers in terms of species diversity. And so,
Mhm.
number one is definitely the flowering plants. They went off,
Hmm.
but the conifers, I mean, honestly, are doing pretty well for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, there is evidence of dinosaur herbivory.
Ooh.
Yes.
Yes. So we know that somebody was eating these cycads. We know that some dinosaurs were. So they were clearly eating the cones because we have found the undigested seeds in dinosaur poop.
Cool.
Yeah. You don't get much more direct evidence than here is dinosaur poop with cycad seeds inside. So the modern genus of Cycas has its earliest record in the Paleogene of East Asia, and Zamiaceae is recognizable back in the Cretaceous.
Okay. So
Very
cycads,
neat.
sort of, we have familiar groups of cycads by the end of the Mesozoic era.
Yes, and that makes a lot of sense. In many ways, the global flora in the late Cretaceous, it's pretty modern in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So this conversation has been going a long way towards answering the next question that I was going to ask, but it's on the outline, so I'm going to ask it anyway. Cycads are treated as this ancient plant, right? That is like their thing, and we are already getting a picture of the answer. But are there other factors that you think are the reasons why we think of cycads as being ancient plants? Obviously, they're still here, right?
So one major reason is because a lot of work was done on them. Like they have been very well studied through time. So historically, if you go through like the history of paleobotany, people were super interested in Paleozoic plants because like those are weird. And they're kind of ubiquitous. But particularly in the UK, there's so much Jurassic exposure.
Oh, sure.
You can just find so many Jurassic fossils in the UK. So that means that British paleobotanists could very easily study the Jurassic flora. And the Jurassic flora is really dominated in many ways by cycads. So a lot of this, like, kind of pioneering work in paleobotany, especially in the UK in the late 1800s and early 1900s, like they were looking at the Jurassic.
Yeah.
And that's true to a certain extent in North America too.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about. I'm going to say a strange thing, which is that the Jurassic has kind of fallen over time in its representation and in its fame, despite the fact that the word Jurassic has become extremely popular. Most of our big famous dinosaurs are Cretaceous dinosaurs and other ancient species. There's a lot of focus on Cretaceous.
Which is a shame because the sauropod domination was also in the Jurassic. Like,
yeah.
The Jurassic is underrated. That's my hot take.
But in the late 1800s, early 1900s especially, there was a lot of focus on the Jurassic, not only in research, but like we were talking about this earlier this year with our silver screen science movies, Brontosaurus, Stegosaurus, Allosaurus.
Yes.
These are all Jurassic dinosaurs who were some of the big names in movies and stuff like that. So I imagine if you're a paleo artist around the turn of the century and you want to depict a scene with your Brontosaurus and your Stegosaurus and your Allosaurus, an easy go-to for the vegetation is cycads.
Yes. And especially because they are not something found in Europe. They're not found in temperate North America. And so they come across as this like, exotic, tropical thing, how ancient, how primeval. And so the fact that it's not found there today, that you are finding these in these fossils, I think that kind of, led to it's this association. And also, I mean, it does look kind of ancient. Like it's a crocodile of plants, right? Like you look at that, like that plant's seen some things.
Well, and it's like you're saying, that not only are they not common in those areas, but they're not they're not dominating forests. We don't have cycad forests.
Correct.
Today. So the idea that you could have had, areas where, but the average big plant you see is a cycad here gives that very, this was a different time sort of feel.
If you see paleo art that's full of like, tree ferns and cycads, it's like, ooh, exotic. That could literally just be Australia, but like it comes across to a European as being, like, oh, a different time.
Yes.
So kind of like we were talking about, like they really did peak in the Jurassic. And so their decline in morphological and taxonomic diversity in the middle Jurassic and then as we get into the Cretaceous was likely due to competition with angiosperms, possibly extinction of the dinosaurs. But the age of cycads might actually be a misnomer. Correct response, guys. Good job.
But tell us more. We're rapt with attention.
I studied the script.
So the age of cycads is named because look at all these cycad fossils we found. Great, perfect, makes perfect sense. I did mention there were other things that looked a lot like cycads in the fossil record.
Yeah.
So there's ferns. You could probably tell the difference between ferns and cycads, but Bennettitalians. So Bennettitalians are this extinct group of gymnosperms that were around and abundant in the Mesozoic, and they look so much like cycads. One of the names for them is cycadioids.
Cool.
Right? So if you've ever heard about Fossil Cycad National Park or National Monument, the one in South Dakota where the people poached all of the fossils,
Sure.
they weren't cycads. They were
Mm.
Bennettitalians. So unless you have reproductive structures, because that, if you have a reproductive structure of a Bennettitalian, it can't possibly be anything else. But if you're just looking at their leaves, it could be difficult to differentiate between the two. So this might actually be inflating the abundance of cycads because there is another group that's extinct today that has looks very similar from a vegetative standpoint. Maybe not all of the cycads that we found are actually cycads.
And
Yeah.
Bennettitales are an ancient group of plants.
They are an ancient group of plants.
Aren't around anymore.
Correct. They're another one that has been put forth as a hypothesized ancestor to angiosperms.
Now, the real downside of Bennettitalians is that they don't have as good a name.
Well, see, that's
like
the
marketability
Yeah.
is not. I love the word Bennettitalia. I think it's great.
It's so much fun to say, but it is in fact a mouthful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's got kind of a built-in stutter to it, which makes it real hard if you're struggling with pronouncing these kind of words.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot of benedictas there.
That's a word that Will and I would have to pause and discuss off mic for a second.
Yep, yes. That I would have had to Bennettitalian.
But that is the downside of groups that are not around in the modern. They don't really get common names as often. And so you get stuck with these unwieldy mouthfuls of a name.
Yeah.
Just call them bennies.
I hate that. It's the same energy as compies, and I hate that too. I'm gonna be honest.
I also hate compies.
Okay, thank goodness.
I don't like calling them.
Okay,
compies.
we can continue to be friends. Thank goodness.
Will, you're out.
I'll just take my compies and bennies and go.
Start my own podcast with compies and bennies. So, cycads hit it big in the Jurassic, dwindling to more of a modern flora in the Cretaceous. What have cycads been up to since? What's the last 50 million years or so looked like for cycads? Has it just looked like it does today?
So there has been this hypothesis, this perceived or this assumption that the modern distribution of cycads is relict from the Mesozoic. And that's not entirely accurate. So the modern diversity of cycads is actually the result of radiations in most genera between the Miocene and the Pleistocene.
That was going to be my guess.
Yes. Which,
honestly, that's when plants changed.
Correct.
Because dryness and coldness and grass happened.
Yes, those are the things that happened. This is my favorite time period, so I'm excited. Yes, so this modern diversity is not an ancient leftover. It is a Cenozoic development.
Yeah.
So they are still restricted to a fragment of the peak that they had during, the Mesozoic, but it's not like they have been just holding on by a thread. They are continuing to innovate and do cool things because they are, alive and continuing to evolve. So in many ways, they don't look all that different. They're not really living in different ways from the end Cretaceous. They are in some ways, right? They have diversified into drier habitats, right? I talked about them being in grasslands. they've moved back into higher elevations, into these more upland environments, which is honestly where they originated
Yeah.
in the Carboniferous. So this, in some ways, this is a return to their roots, as it were.
Return with their roots.
Yes, exactly. It was real slow, though. They do not move very fast. But yes, so in many ways, like, there's fewer of them. Their diversity has, decreased, but they're continuing to innovate and they're continuing to expand into new environments. So they're doing okay for themselves.
Cool. Speaking of neogene cycads, you have worked on African sites in warm places. Are there cycads at the sites that you've worked at over there?
No, not that I could find. So there also aren't palms, which is very disappointing.
Nothing to fan yourselves while you eat grapes.
Honestly, okay, it's really frustrating. Sorry, this is just a tangent. So I worked in Kenya in the Miocene, so roughly 18 million years ago. I worked with a friend of mine who was in earliest Paleocene in New Mexico, so like 65 million years ago. And he had palms. They just hadn't made it to Africa yet, and that was frankly devastating. If I had worked in later in the Miocene, I could have gotten palms, but not the early Miocene. Anyway, that is a tangent. So there are some cycads in East Africa today.
Okay.
But so that's where some of the more like higher elevation ones that I was talking about are from. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were there in more upland environments. So not necessarily in the like rainforest environment that I was working with. And today, the modern diversity of cycads in East Africa is not super high. So it's not very surprising. It is frankly devastating now that I'm realizing that, like, what if I had found a cycad? Wouldn't that be so cool?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't find a single non-angiosperm at the locality that I worked on.
Yeah, it is the Cenozoic.
It was like, it's solidly Cenozoic too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like tropical Cenozoic.
Yeah.
That's what you're gonna find.
Yeah. And honestly, if I'd found a neophyte, I wouldn't be able to tell, I don't think, just from looking at the leaves. Their leaves are pretty much unless you're looking real close and know what you're doing, are pretty much indistinguishable from angiosperm leaves, which complicates things. Morphospecies. It's the best we can do. I feel like that's a tagline. Yeah. Morphospecies. It's the best we can do.
Put it on a shirt.
Yeah, it's because of the way it's shaped.
Because of the way it is.
Yes.
You can tell it's a cycad because of the way it is.
I genuinely like the idea of getting my PhD advisor a shirt that said Morphospecies. It's the best we could do.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I'll get a shirt with a snake vertebra on it, and it'll say family. It's the best we could do. Colubrity.
I still have all of my drawings from taking paleoherpetology. So I have my drawings of snake vertebrae.
Oh yeah. I love this is not a surprising statement. I love snake vertebrae. They're so cool.
That is not.
They're just
surprising.
Such cool bones. They look so good. Agree. Like they are some of the best vertebrae that there are. Right?
They are really
like I will agree with that.
And not even this isn't even me casting my usual shade at crocs. Croc vertebrae are pretty generic looking, like herp vertebrae.
They're very pretty standard.
Yes.
Snake vertebrae are so cool. They're so distinctive. Oh, they're the best. And
they're
thank goodness, because that's what you
vertebrae.
Yep, exactly. Allie, this discussion has given me much greater appreciation for cycads. I am still not sure I would identify one by looking at it, but I have a lot of like technical appreciation for them.
Excellent.
I had a thought and a question about our modern cycads compared to their history.
Yes.
Do we have, and like I know with this one it fossilized per se, but like genetic studies and estimations, an idea of have they been as toxic as they are the whole time, or is there an idea of when that came around?
That's interesting. I did not dig into that, but now
Hmm.
I'm intrigued because obviously that would have to be a genetic study. We have no
Yes,
way of
exactly.
knowing from the fossils, but I would be very curious if there is some sort of estimate, yeah, how deeply into their history. Because if you, my hypothesis, just thinking about it, who's really going to try to eat a cycad like meaningfully
Hmm.
until you get to the Mesozoic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
yeah, maybe in the Permian, definitely not in the Carboniferous. Like they're probably mostly fine in the Carboniferous. But yeah, maybe in the Permian someone will try to take a bite, but it's by the time you get to the Mesozoic. And the Mesozoic, we know things are eating them.
Yes, exactly.
So, and who knows? There are a lot of things that birds can eat that like mammals can't. So maybe this is
Yeah.
the same thing with dinosaurs. Like they're
Mhm.
chomping away, and it's not until the mammals of rise that's like, oh no, not you.
Yes,
Well,
exactly.
you were talking about the decline of cycads in the Cretaceous, and obviously we have the radiation of angiosperms. But the other thing that happens in the Cretaceous
Hmm.
is that multiple groups of dinosaurs become some of the best herbivores in Earth history.
Yep.
Yes.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the toxic varieties of cycads are the ones who survived.
Yes,
Yep.
that makes a lot of sense, right? Because everyone else got eaten.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because hadrosaurs and ceratopsians were just grinding plants up.
Yes.
Oh, just clearing brush. Just
Yep.
absolutely
Just doing mammals before
devastating.
mammals.
Yes, exactly.
Bigger, better.
Allie, this has been fascinating. As always, I've learned so many things about plants, but we're not done because
Sure.
there is one last thing to do for this episode, and that is answer some patron questions. One of the benefits that our patrons receive in exchange for their support of Common Descent on Patreon is the ability to ask questions for us to answer here at the end of the podcast. There's a handful of those questions on that list that have the word plant in them. And every time we have an Allie episode coming up, I control F plant and I look for Allie related questions. This episode, we have two different questions that are both related to ancient plants. The first is from Ryan, who asks, is there a plant equivalent of the Cambrian explosion?
I was thrilled that Will decided to mention the Cambrian explosion. Like, ha ha ha
That's what I
ha.
do.
He doesn't know. So, short answer, yes. Longer answer. So, the Silurian Devonian Terrestrial Revolution, the SDTR, aka the Devonian plant explosion,
Yeah.
which has the abbreviation or the acronym DEPE, which is very fun. So this was about 428 to 359 million years ago. Basically, land plants evolved during the Ordovician, but they really began to spread in the Silurian. So some of the first fossils of vascular plants are in the Silurian, but the first forests, we find those in the middle Devonian. So like horsetails, club mosses, all these fun things. Like by the time you get to the Devonian, plants are planting in ways that are shockingly reminiscent of the modern.
Devonian plant explosion is a term that I did not know. I was not familiar with that. That's awesome.
Yes, it's great. We
Delightful.
have one. This is thrilling. I like when I can say yes to these questions.
It's when plants developed eyes and they could finally start hunting each other.
Yes, exactly.
And then some of them had to develop like shells and
Yep.
spines to protect
Yeah.
themselves from the predatory plants. They were digging
burrows.
Right? They dig burrows. Yep. Our next question is from Zelphia, who mentions that we talk a lot about megafauna, right? We've spent a lot of time on the podcast talking about megafauna, animals that are gigantic. Zelphia asks, are there plant species that we consider to be megaflora? And is there any particular time period that we could consider to be representative of giant plants?
So don't worry. The answer to this is also yes. So,
Amazing.
and it's funny if you look up the definition of megaflora, charismatic is part of it in many of the same ways. You have charismatic megafauna, you have charismatic megaflora. So some of the examples that I saw were redwoods and sequoias, And
Sure.
Pando, my dear friend. So yes, it is exactly what you think. These really large, this is going to include things too, like the dipterocarps, these just enormous trees. It's trees, guys. It's pretty much exclusively trees. In terms of time period, the Cenozoic is really the time of the megaflora. There are tall trees from petrified wood throughout the Cenozoic, and you'll get trees in the Mesozoic too, and even back into the Paleozoic, but like it's really the Cenozoic. Like, and honestly, there's not really anything as big as like, or in terms of, or as tall as modern redwoods, sequoias, things like that. If they were getting that big in the past, they're not preserving, and so we don't know. Fun fact that really confused me the first time I read this question: megaflora is also a way of describing things that aren't microflora. So megaflora is also just like, I could see this plant fossil.
Yep, there it is.
So we have a lot of those too.
megaflora.
But specifically, yes, there are big old plants in the same way that you have big old charismatic animals.
So today is the age of giant plants.
It would appear so, yes.
Why?
Yeah.
That is a great question. And I'm not sure. I think it honestly might be, I don't know, because I was going to say, oh, is it because it's the time of angiosperms? But no, because a lot of the biggest plants are gymnosperms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is it the cold and dryness that is somehow doing it?
And it might just be that it is this combination of habitats and groups on the planet that we just happen to get lucky with who is where at this time. Because I don't think that, so like in the past, right? So like in the, say, the Paleozoic, they didn't really have innovations to get that. They were barely vascularized, honestly. So they didn't have the innovations to get that tall. You do see that during the Mesozoic, but it might be that they didn't need to be as big, right? If it's just a bunch of gymnosperms, like cycads aren't that tall. They're competing with each other. So it might be the innovation of angiosperms where it's like, oh no.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
This maybe kind of arms race, but I'm not 100% sure, but it does seem like this is the time when we see a lot of these megaflora species.
See, I think they saw whales do it and they went, wait, that's allowed? We can get that big?
Well, and that's the thing that's kind of funny because, and we've definitely talked about this, is there is this feeling that things were bigger, more impressive, whatever in the past. But sometimes you are living at the time with the biggest thing.
Yes.
Yep. The other thing this question made me think of, and I had to look it up to confirm, because megaflora made me think of Groot, because Groot is a flora colossi.
Yes.
Which I was like, is that what Groot is? For a second, I couldn't remember if that's what Groot was. No, he's flora colossi, but close.
Yes.
Very close.
Charismatic, though.
so
That's
charismatic. Allie, as always, this has been a ton of fun. Listeners, check out the blog post for this episode. Also, check out other episodes that are related to this, such as episode 155, all about gymnosperms. Episode 215, about ferns. Episode 165 was fruit, so you can go learn about real fruit.
Yeah, not these lies.
And if you want even more, you should go listen to Leave It to Us, which is a separate podcast that just as of this recording recently did a whole episode about berries, which talked about different styles of fruit types. And there were also some other, you mentioned something earlier in this discussion that was an episode of Leave It to Us that I don't remember what it was now.
I don't remember. We haven't done that many, but it's too many apparently. Yeah, listen to the berry episode. David got really upset.
I did get, that's true. There was some really upsetting information in the berries episode. I have strong feelings, and you'll hear them on the episode. That's how strong they were. Leave It to Us season 2 is underway by the time this episode comes out. I believe 3 of the season 2 episodes will be released by then. So you can go listen to Leave It to Us. It is underway. Allie and Nora are having a great time. Also, by the time this episode comes out, we will have had the first meeting of the Leave It to Us plant-themed book club reading Between the Pines.
True.
And we haven't had it when we're sitting here recording it, but it was great.
Oh, absolutely.
We had a great time. Thank you to everybody who showed up. And thank you to all of the Leave It to Us patrons who voted on the books.
Yeah, and we're going to keep doing this. So if you weren't able to join us this month, we're doing it again. So come back, please. It's going to be great.
Checking out on the Common Ascent Discord. You can also check out Leave It to Us over on the Leave It to Us Patreon, or just go listen. It's fantastic. If you like listening to Allie talk, it's full of it. Leave It to Us, so full of Allie.
Yes, it's kind of it's load bearing.
Yes, Allie is a load bearing presence on Leave It to Us.
It's true. It's true. I am one of the us.
Yes. Also, this episode comes out in June, which is Croc Month. We are celebrating Crocs all month long. The Croc Chat channel is open in Discord. The Crocs and Snakes tier is up on Patreon, where support we receive during these months of the summer. That tier will contribute to charitable donations we will be making towards wildlife conservation at the end of the summer. Also, we got a super special bonus Croc Month episode that's going to be coming out this month on World Croc Day, June 6th, June 17th. So keep your ears out for that.
Speaking of Crocs, you two mentioned what shirts you would want, and since you went on a tirade about how cool snake vertebrae are, very inappropriate for this month.
I stand by it.
The shirt I want is just a picture of a croc tooth, and it just says, "There were Crocs here."
Yes, here there be Crocs.
Because that's so often of
yes.
Some of the animals known here are this, and some crocodilian.
Yeah.
And that's all we can say.
To quote an old mentor of mine, and to a certain extent both of yours, Jim Mead, who used to say, specifically he would say this in reference to snake vertebrae, is just like, yep, snake-a-day. You can't identify it. Yeah, tooth, croc-a-day.
Yep. Shaped like an ice cream cone? All right, we're good to go.
Thank you to the people who requested this episode topic. This was super fun. Thank you to our patrons who support us financially. An extra special thanks to our top tier patrons, Sarah May, Danielle Loves Bugs, and Jeff Ellington. And of course, the biggest of thanks to our favorite paleobotanist, Dr. Allie Baumgartner, for joining us yet again to regale us with fun facts and sometimes upsetting information about plants.
That's what I'm here for. Fun facts and upsetting information.
And you deliver every time.
That's what I went to school for. That's what the PhD is actually in.
I do have to say that, that is a pretty common theme. There's usually something uncomfortable. This one, it was the neurotoxin and carcinogens, I think.
Yes. That was the one.
I'm glad you agree on what the most upsetting part of the episode was.
Yes, we are usually on the same page with that.
I am upset a lot during Leave It to Us.
Yeah, that's what the if you listen to Leave It at Us and you're a patron and get to listen to the after chats before we leave, David regales us with the things that were upsetting and didn't like about, in terms of facts, right? Like I didn't like learning this about the plant. I didn't like learning this about the plant.
The ways plants were inappropriate this episode.
Yes. These are my problems with the plants.
Yep.
This during Common Descent, you hear me react, but and Leave It to Us, mostly I'm making faces that Allie is reacting to.
Unless it's too bad, and then David has to come out and join us.
Then I gotta jump in. Then the mute button is off. The gloves and the mute button are off, and I am jumping in there to complain about berries.
Yes, it's a great episode, y'all.
We release episodes every fortnight here at Common Descent. They also release episodes every fortnight. Leave It to Us for the duration of the season. So you've got, and I have to check something, and I believe those fortnights are synced this summer. So you get a new episode of both each on the same week.
What fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
How about that?
How about that?
We'll be back for episode 246, which is going to be about Crocs. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
And then we'll be back for episode 255 someday, which will be about
Eventually.
plants again.
Yeah.
Time to learn about corn.
That's the most upsetting part of the episode for me.
Yes. Yep. All right, let's leave.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Common Descent podcast. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and check our WordPress blog for pictures and links after each episode. Huge thanks to our patrons whose support helps keep this podcast running and who get access to bonus goodies on Patreon. The song you're hearing is called On the Origin of Species by Protodome, which we found at ocremix.org. Thanks again for listening. We hope you'll join us next time.